All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for showing up today. I know that you have many opportunities for your diversion, and I'm glad that you chose to make this where you came today. So my name is Rachel Keener. I've been with the Counseling Center since 2007, and this topic is very near and dear to my heart. I came into the field of psychology like many people because I really want to help people to grow. And so just a few things before we get into our topic today. Some important details is, for the most part, we are not going to be using the chat feature, except for one little exercise that I'll be doing in just a minute. So if you have questions, the best place to put them is in the Q&A box, which I will be looking at the very end. And so if you have a question at any point during the webinar, put it in the Q&A box and just be patient. And you may find that I'll answer it during the course of the presentation. So that's the best place to put it. All right, some people I know are here for extra credit, and that is very important. I will have a slide later in the presentation with instructions on how you can go about getting extra credit for today. So that will be later in the presentation. And this will be recorded, so just in case you need to leave early or you know someone that you would like to share this with, it will be on our website, the same place where you signed up for it, in about 1 or 2 weeks. If you stay to the end and you complete the evaluation, you'll be entered for an equal opportunity drawing for a gift card. So we have today 56 participants, and that means that we will have 2 Amazon gift cards available for students. Okay, so this is not therapy. This webinar today is not therapy. If you are hoping to get therapy and you're a registered student at CSUSB, you're eligible for individual therapy, crisis counseling, and we have a number of groups available, including in April, Managing Your Moods, the Veteran Support Group. And one of my colleagues is developing a drop-in group that should begin sometime in April. So stay tuned for that. All right, so we're going to start out with a little exercise of what are you grateful for? And so if you could put your answers in the chat, I will read a few of them out loud. So go ahead, you can drop them in the chat right now. And I can share with you that I have a new family member as of February, and I'm so very grateful for him. So I'm going to share a photo. Yeah, this is my new little dog Scout. So very thankful for him. All right, so I'm looking at the chat. Looks like a lot of people are saying family members and pets, health, strength to rise up after every problem. These are great. Excellent. Yes. Boyfriend, family. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Yes, it's really helpful to check in on what you're grateful for. This talk today is not on gratitude journaling, but if that's not already a part of what you do, I highly encourage you to engage in gratitude journaling. And that is simply writing down just like 3 to 5 things a day, not even every day, that you're grateful for. And the research has shown that that is actually a really, really positive thing to do. It will boost your mood immeasurably. So let's get started with a poll. So the question is, I use journaling to process my traumas and or emotional upheavals. So let me pull up the poll. There we are. Go ahead and fill it out. Okay, it looks like the majority of people have answered. Just give it a few more seconds. And I'm going to share the results. So it's 18% of you have never used journaling to process your traumas or emotional upheavals. Well, you're in for a treat today. You're gonna learn a lot. 42% a few times in my life, 18% a couple times a year, 13% a couple times a month, 4% a couple times a week, and then 5% daily or almost daily. Okay, so maybe some of you don't use journaling because you're like, well, it doesn't really help me, or, you know, I'm afraid someone might see what I write, or it's just not been helpful. So we're going to look today at a technique that is helpful, that has a lot of research behind it. So let's go ahead and get to the meat of the program today. So what are we going to be doing? We are going to be looking at the benefits of expressive writing, techniques where you're actually going to get benefits from it. And I have a long list of frequently asked questions. If I don't answer your question during that list, then go ahead and put your question in the chat. So this is a quote from Socrates. It's "The unexamined life is not worth living." And that is really the gist of what expressive writing is all about, is examining your life in greater detail to see what, how you can grow from that as a result. Okay, so today's presentation is based on the life work of James W. Pennebaker. He is a professor at the University of Texas in Austin, and he has done so much research. He really has broken the ground on expressive writing and using it to heal through traumas. So his book, Writing to Heal, A Guided Journal for Recovering from Trauma and Emotional Upheaval, is where a lot of the content for today is coming from. So you can purchase it, but really I'm giving you the gist of what he's saying. So you can buy it if you like, but I don't think that you need to. Okay, so his team, actually, I'm going to tell you about a study that kind of broke ground for why he was looking at expressive writing. So they were finding that, of course, when people have been through emotional upheaval and traumas, that it impacts their entire being. So it impacts them physically, emotionally, in every way. And people tend to have more sicknesses, they have more diseases when they've been through a trauma. So they did a study. They asked people, 600 college students, they asked them before the age of 17, have you experienced the death of a family member, divorce of parents, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or any other experience in which your personality changed as a result? And so, the team found, of course, that it's bad to have trauma, but it's even worse if you've had a trauma and you haven't had a safe place where you can work through it. And so what they found was that over 50% of the students, and these were middle class, upper class students, over 50% had had a trauma, and many of them had not confided in anyone about it. And so what this study was looking at was, how many doctor's visits had they had in the previous year? And so people who had no trauma, their immune systems were functioning better. And so they experienced many less visits to the doctor than those who had a trauma. And those who had a trauma and confided it experienced 43% less visits to the doctor than those who had had a trauma and didn't confide in anyone. So I put the title on this, Our Secrets Are Our Heavy Burdens. And we may think, oh, it's not impacting me, it's not affecting me, but it really is. And it shows up in how our immune systems function on a daily basis. So he went on from there. He did an initial experiment in the mid-'80s where they took 50 students. They had two groups. They had a group where half of them wrote about an emotional upheaval, and then the other half wrote about something that was superficial and a non-emotional topic. And they said to them, I want you to write about this for 4 days, 15 minutes a day. And I'm going to read to you the writing prompt that they gave them. Okay, so this is what they said. to those who were to write about an emotional trauma. You have signed up for an experiment where you will write for 15 minutes per day for 4 consecutive days. Everything you write will be anonymous and confidential. You will never receive any feedback about your writing. At the conclusion of each day's writing, we ask that you put your writing into a large box so that we can analyze it. However, giving it to us is completely up to you. If you choose not to give it to us, you need not. In your writing, I want you to really let go and explore your very deepest thoughts and feelings about the most traumatic experience of your life. You might try to tie this to this traumatic experience to other parts of your life, your childhood, your relationships with your parents, close friends, lovers, or any other people who are important to you. You might link your writing to your future and who you would like to become, to who you were in the past, or to who you are now. The important thing is for you to really let go and write about your deepest emotions and thoughts. You can write about the same thing all 4 days or about different things on each day. That is entirely up to you. Many people have never had traumatic experiences, but all of us have faced major conflicts or stressors, and you can write about those as well. Okay, so can you imagine going into an experiment and that is the prompt, and you didn't know that that was going to be the prompt? I have a feeling that in the 80s, they got away with IRB, with experiments that nowadays probably wouldn't fly. But back then, this is what they did. They went in there, they got this prompt. They'd probably never been asked to do anything like this before. And so the experiment was looking again at visits to the doctor. So they got permission to look at doctor's visits before and after, in the weeks and months after this expressive writing experiment. So this is what they found. The people who engaged in expressive writing had way fewer visits to the doctor than those who did non-emotional writing and those who did no writing at all. So there was something incredible about that experience of writing and letting go of the heavy burdens that they were carrying. And they've done many, many more experiments since then. And they've looked at, okay, what are the effects of expressive writing? And it's much more than just the immune system, which is what the early experiments were looking at. And of course, people who are able to express their emotions, their immune systems just function better. And experiment after experiment has shown that. Those people who deal with long-term illnesses like asthma or arthritis or even AIDS, they found that those people had improvements also. And so people with asthma, their lungs were functioning better. People with arthritis, they had less pain. People with AIDS actually had higher white blood count levels. And people who actually had metastatic cancers were sleeping better, all from doing this expressive writing experience. Also, people, when they have stress, they tend to carry it in their faces. And so people coming out of this writing experience found that their faces, they carried less tension in them. Behavioral changes, this may be of great interest to you if you're a student, but in the semester following engaging in this writing expressive experiment, people's grades actually went up. And they tracked them with audio recorders. And they found that people who had engaged in this expressive writing experiment were more social. They laughed more. They were more open to engaging with other people. They were actually better friends with other people. Incredible, huh? Initially, after coming out of this expressive writing experiment, people were sad, which makes sense. They were focused on their most traumatic experience of their life. And they might be in that state for about 1 or 2 hours. But the long-term effects overall were that they were happier, less negative, less depressed. They would ruminate less. So rumination is basically when you go over and over and over something that's gone wrong in your life, and it's not helpful. It's actually found to contribute to anxiety and depressive disorders. Long-term general anxiety also went down. So Pretty awesome benefits from something that is so simple. All right, so these are the general instructions. And so if you think you might want to do this writing exercise, you may want to take a photograph of this, although it is being recorded, so you could get it off of our website later. Okay, so 4 days of writing. The later instructions were for 20 minutes a day, but if you only have 15 minutes is better than nothing. The instructions are, this writing is really only for you. No one else is going to read it, okay? So you're not thinking in terms of, let me have flowery language or exceptional spelling or good grammar, let me have good handwriting. None of that is important. This is for you and for you alone. So the goal is to write about the deepest thoughts and feelings about the trauma or the emotional upheaval that has been influencing your life the most. So in your writing, you really want to let go and explore the event and how it's impacted you. You want to tie it to the other places in your life, your childhood, your relationship with your parents and close family members, those that you have feared, hated, and loved, your current life, friends and family, your work, your place in life, who you were in the past, who you are now, and how you want to show up in the future. You want to be really honest with yourself about your deepest emotions and thoughts surrounding this upheaval in your life. So those are the general instructions, and what to expect after writing is basically, initially you're going to feel sad. You may cry, and hopefully you're not afraid of that, because I know some people are afraid, well, if I start crying, I may never stop, and that's just not the case. Eventually you will stop crying. There's also a post-writing completion section that I'll go over in just a little bit. So there is one rule though, the flip out rule, that you want to take a look at. If you feel that your writing about a particular topic is too much for you to handle, then don't write about it. If you know that you aren't ready to address a particularly painful topic, write about something else. When you are ready, then tackle it. If you feel that you will flip out by writing, don't write about it, okay? So sometimes, traumas are so terrible and they've been locked away for so long, people think, well, I can't handle writing about it. And if that's the case, then absolutely don't write about that topic. Okay, so guidelines for journaling to heal. Start with something that's bothering you right now. It could be something simple like, you have a conflict with a friend, or it could be you're experiencing problems in your relationship with a family member or with your significant other. That would be a good place to start, maybe something lighter, especially for your first time journaling about it. Trust where your writing takes you, but if you get bored, if you're like, what's for dinner, or I'm really looking forward to going to that coffee shop this weekend, then you should probably switch topics. You want to keep it on something that's really upsetting you. And it is time focused. You're only doing this for 20 minutes. So go ahead and switch topics if that's the case. You don't want to dig up old traumas. Just let it lie, okay? If you've already kind of come to terms with it, if you have peace with it, don't use that as something that you're going to do emotional writing about. And if you're like, I don't know if I had a trauma, but maybe I did, don't deal with that. Don't even try and dig and find oh, was there a trauma there? Don't worry about that. If there was a trauma, it will come up when it's time. So you don't have to dig for it. And keep in mind, it's 20 minutes a day, 4-day minimum. You could do longer, and I'll talk more about that later. You can always have booster sessions if more stuff comes up related to this topic. Okay, so here are the post-writing reflection questions. And this is just really quickly on a scale of 1 to 10. It's time for you to reflect on the writing that you did. So to what degree did I express my deepest thoughts and feelings? To what degree do I currently feel sad or upset? To what degree do I currently feel happy? To what degree was today's writing valuable and meaningful to me? And briefly describe how the writing went. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on this section, maybe just, 3 to 5 minutes. But this is important though, that you do reflect on, hey, was this actually a helpful time of writing for me? Okay, so we're going to get into a series of frequently asked questions. Okay, so why might I use this writing technique? Well, first of all, the price is right. It would cost you a journal, which you could just get a notebook from, the drugstore for $1, and a pen. Or you could even type on your computer. We'll talk more about that later. It is so very accessible. You can do this anytime, anywhere. Another reason why you might use this technique is if you can't have complete transparency with anyone. So maybe there's something that's happened and you're like, oh, I'm afraid this person's going to judge me or they're not going to understand. Journaling would be a really great place to start, where you can be completely transparent with yourself. You also might want to use this if you're already seeing a therapist. It can kind of take you deeper into the work of what you're already doing. And you can let them know, hey, I'm doing this expressive writing, and you could bring some of that into your therapy sessions or not. It's up to you. It could also be standalone therapy. If it's working for you and you're finding that you're getting results and doing this strategy, then this could be your form of therapy. And it's also important, if you have heavy burdens, that you're not carrying them around all the time, so that you're more free to be who you are, and so that you can be focused on being a student and have all that emotional energy for the rest of your life. Should I write every day? I know people who do write every day and they find it to be very helpful. I don't write every day. I think it is very helpful though. But Pennebaker says this: my own experience is that journal writing works best when used on an as-needed basis. If your life is going well and you're happy and you're not obsessed with anything in the past, why overanalyze it? Let it go and enjoy life as it comes. It is safe to say that some future miseries will come to visit you again. When they do, do some writing to deal with them. So take that as you like. You can write every day if you want to, or you could just when things come up for you. And for some people, things come up every single day. So this could be a really great tool to use every single day. Okay, is it ever too soon to begin writing about a traumatic experience? And the answer is yes. If you've experienced a massive trauma in the past couple of days or in the last 2 to 3 weeks, it may be too soon for you to write about it. In which case, just, wait until you're not reeling so much from it, and just kind of take care of getting your rhythm back in regular life of sleeping, eating, exercising. And then when it's time, you'll know, like, okay, now I can handle writing about it. Okay, so what writing style works best? It's really important that you are very open about your emotions, that you go ahead, feel the emotion, check in with yourself, name it. You may even give it a rating, like, oh, I'm feeling this, like 10 out of 10. It's also really important that you form a coherent story around what happened. In fact, those people who get the most benefit from this expressive writing have actually been able to come up with a story around what happens. And I'll talk more about that later. So it's also helpful to switch perspectives. So if you're writing and writing and writing, and you're only doing it from the pronoun of I, you're not going to get as much benefit as you begin to see what happened from different people's perspective in your life. This is what Pennebaker has found, that this is really where the healing happens, is where you're able to take a different perspective on the experience. You also want to find the voice that reflects you. So this is not the time, like I said, for flowery language. This is not the time to be quoting different people unless that really is your voice. So the whole point of this is it's for you. It's for you to be really open and honest with yourself. Questions have come up like, oh, is it better if you type versus just, write it out? And research has found it actually does not make a difference. The best thing to do is what works for you. Is it easier for you to type it out? Is it easier for you to write it out? Or do you enjoy one of those more? Whichever is easier and you enjoy more, go ahead and go with that. There's benefits either way. Okay, so this question of writing versus talking. You can go ahead and talk into a recording device. So let's say you're like, I hate journaling. I hate sitting down with paper and pencil. I don't like writing things out. Okay, maybe you would actually do better with talking into a recording device. And research has shown this is also helpful. The whole idea, though, is that you are emotionally expressing what you're going through. What about talking to a person? If you have someone in your life who loves you unconditionally and you can just be completely open and honest with them, research shows it's probably better if you talk it out. However, a lot of people don't have that. You know, they are afraid that someone's going to judge me and they're not going to be understood. And so they just don't have that person that they can be completely open and honest with. And so writing can be a really great way to express yourself if you don't have that. They actually did an experiment where they had people write everything out and then they read what they wrote to an audience. And this one, actually, people were worse off afterwards because then they were worried like, oh, you know, what do those people think of me? And so it really detracted from the experience for them. Now, can that be a healing experience? Absolutely. I know that there are trauma focus groups where you do write out your traumas and you do read it, but there needs to be a lot of safety in those situations. Okay, and safety. Safety is such a big thing. For you to feel safe to go ahead and just, you know, express everything without holding it back, because that's where you're going to see the most benefits, is if you can just express everything that you're feeling. So back in the day, I don't know if they make these anymore, the child's magic pad where you would write and then you would lift it and it would be gone. But they did a study with that versus regular paper, and they found that people had relief either way. So even if you immediately get rid of everything that was written, and you could do that even with your computer, you write it and you just don't save it. Either way, it was helpful for them. So there's not a need that you hold on to it or save it. I mean, you could even burn whatever you've written if you've put it on paper. Okay. All right, so here we go. We're gonna do another poll. What is your preferred method of journaling? So let me launch this. So the options are talking into a recording device, typing on my computer, tapping it into my phone, writing in a paper journal, or writing in the air. I didn't explain that one. I'll have to explain that one. I'm so sorry. Okay, looks like just about everyone has answered. Let me share the results. Okay, so talking into a recording device, and I should have also said, like, maybe you're not doing it now, but this is what you would want to do. So talking into a recording device, 7% of people. Typing on your computer, 7%. Actually, I thought that one would be higher. Tapping it into my phone, 16%. Writing in a paper journal, 69%. Let me explain this last one, writing in the air. So Pennebaker has also done experiments where people write in the air. So if you're concerned about safety and like, oh no, someone might read what I wrote, they've actually had people write their traumas in the air. And that was equally as effective for working through traumatic experiences because they're getting in touch with their emotions. So no one will ever see that. I mean, they won't see, there's no record of it. They might see you doing it and think that you're a little out there, but they won't see what you've written. Okay. Okay, so another question is, should I write about the past? Well, if the past continues to bother you, absolutely write about it. What if I'm having problems with the present? Should I write about it? Absolutely. Write about it if you're having problems in the present. What if I'm worried about a future loss in the future? Is it helpful to write about that? And Pennebaker's research says yes. If you have some future loss that you're worried about, go ahead and write about it. Past, present, and future, these are all helpful to do. When is a good time to write? So if you are in the midst of an incredibly busy semester, and here we are right at midterms, so sorry, it's probably not the best time. You want to wait until your work life or your school life is a little bit slower. And the reason is because it takes quite a bit of emotional energy to do this kind of work. Maybe when you're on vacation, that might be a good time. The beginning of the weekend, if you don't work through the whole weekend. I know a lot of you do work many, many hours at many different jobs. Basically, when you're less busy, and also you don't want to do this and then immediately have to rush to something that will, like class or an exam or something like that. You want it to be when you have just a little bit more time so that you can process. When is the best time of day to write? It might be helpful to pick the same time of the day, especially when you have time after to reflect about it, not when you're going to rush off. Evening seems to work well for people, although I personally like to do it pretty much early, first thing when I wake up in the morning. And where do you write? You want to write in a place where you have privacy, absolutely a comfortable place for you, where you feel safe and secure. Okay, so you may want to create some kind of a writing ritual. Maybe you light a candle, you might want to burn incense, make a cup of tea or coffee. Maybe it's your before exercise or your after exercise routine, or maybe you take a shower before or after. I like to play mood music while I journal. I think it just helps me kind of get into the zone better. So that's something that I added. Okay, who benefits the most from expressive writing? What do you think, men or women? Well, the answer might surprise you. Both people, both males and females, benefit from expressive writing, but males benefit just a little bit more. And he doesn't explain why, but my thoughts on the matter are that, men in our society have been told that they can't express their emotions as freely as women. And so this expressive writing exercise allows a place for them to express their emotions more freely. Okay, what about personality type? So hostile, aggressive people do tend to get more benefit out of this form of writing than people who are more open and who are more connected. And the thought with that is also, okay, they don't have a place where they can freely express their emotions. And so on paper, they're able to express themselves freely without fear of how they may impact other people. What about education level or writing ability? According to their research, anyone from any education level, it doesn't matter, or writing ability, it doesn't matter. Everyone benefits from this. So you don't need to have you don't need to have really good spelling. You don't need to have good spelling at all. You don't need to have good grammar. It's really for the person who's doing the expressive writing. I already talked about the recency of the trauma. You do want to wait if it was more recent. Type of trauma. This has been found to help with all kinds of traumas. So there's not like, it doesn't work with this kind. He said it does tend to work better if the trauma was completely unexpected. There's something about that where writing about it can be more helpful. And as far as culture, class, and language, they've done these experiments in other countries, including well, the US and Mexico and Japan, Holland, Germany, New Zealand. They've done it all across the globe. And they've done the experiment across class levels, upper class, middle class, lower class. It's helpful in all of these different countries and across class levels. It's also helpful even if it's not in the person's native language, which is counterintuitive. You would think it would be more helpful if it's in your native language. And I would suggest going ahead and writing in your native language rather than trying to write in the language that you've learned later in life. But he said it actually doesn't make a difference. The language, even if it's not your native language, it's helpful to be able to write about your traumas, even in your non-native language. Okay, so one more thing. Those who acknowledge the bad and look for the good tend to get the most benefits from expressive writing. So this is not Pollyanna style. Pollyanna, always was looking for the good in life and didn't seem to see the bad. It's not that. It's you have to be able to see the bad, but also look for the good. So the people who can do both of those, they're holding that seesaw in balance. They acknowledge the bad and they look for the good. They tend to get the most benefit. Okay, so how do I know that expressive writing is helping me? Some ways that you would know is that you feel more positive emotions. It's easier for you to laugh. It's easier to fall asleep. You have better sleep. You're healthier. You're not getting sick as often. You're relying less on your drug of choice. You're not ruminating as often where you're going over and over and over the thing that bothers you. When you think about the item that you've been writing about, it feels less painful to you. You're getting along better with others. You're having more open, honest relationships and a greater sense of meaning and purpose in life. So if you're experiencing that, then you can say, yes, this expressive writing is helping me. So the biggest predictor of improvement. So Pennebaker talks about this, constructing a coherent story. So many times when we go through traumatic situations, we don't know what hit us. It's confusing, it's painful. And so over time, being able to write it out and have this sense of, okay, why did this happen? He said insight words like, oh, now I understand, now I realize, now I know. And being able to find meaning in all of that is very helpful in healing and in growing. So also being able to change your perspective. So I talked about that earlier, looking at the trauma from multiple angles. So it's not just my perspective, but it's other people involved and their perspectives on what happened also. So he found that people that could kind of sit down and write out this very coherent story right from the beginning actually didn't benefit very much from expressive writing because they already had a constructed story. So expressive writing is really for when it's confusing for you, it doesn't make sense for you, and you're looking for a way to make sense out of what happened. He says here, writing is beneficial only if trying to make sense of an event you don't understand. So if you already understand it and you're like, yeah, this is why it happened, it really hurt my heart, but these are the reasons why, it probably won't help you as much as if it's just like, I really have no comprehension for how this could have happened. All right, so we are now at the attendance slide. So what you want to do is take your phone and take a picture of this QR code, or if your phone can't do that, you can take a photo of the slide and then type in the Survey Monkey there down at the bottom. So I'll leave this up for just a moment so that you can get the information, fill it out. Okay, we are not quite at the end, so hold on tight. All right, so are there dangers involved in expressive writing? Some people might be afraid, oh no, if I start writing about this, I'm going to lose control. And Pennebaker has done this writing experiment. He said in 20 years, they only had to walk 3 people over to see a psychologist. And all 3 people were like, okay, I'm good. Now I want to go back to the experiment. So if you have this fear of losing control, you shouldn't write on that topic, probably, the flip out rule. The next concern is navel gazing. So his protocol is write about it for 4 days. And after 4 days, you can write about it some more. But if you're writing about it for 4,000 days, okay, that's probably navel gazing. And so if you're writing about it over and over and you're not getting fresh perspective on it, that's actually not helpful. You don't want to do that because you're not getting any new information out of it. All right, so dangers. Another danger might be if the wrong person reads your journal, and it could impact your relationship. So keep your journal away from those people. Keep it locked up if you need to, or have a password on your computer. That is important. Upsetting the status quo. So sometimes people, when they go through writing, they have these epiphanies and they're like, oh, I want to change all these different things in my life. And that could upset relationships. People may decide like, oh, I really don't want to study. I don't want to become a doctor. That's what my parents wanted me to do. And I've kind of gotten in touch with myself and I want to do something else entirely. Okay. So it could upset the status quo, and but maybe that's not a bad thing. So what if you feel worse after expressive writing? Once again, the Counseling Center, we are open. You can reach us at 909-537-5040. We do offer individual counseling, group therapy, and crisis counseling. So we are available for you if you need us. Here is a refresher on the general instructions. So if you didn't get them before, you might want to just snap a photo. Basically, it's 4 days of writing, 20 minutes a day, write continuously. It's only for you. Write about the deepest thoughts and feelings about the trauma or emotional upheaval that has been influencing your life the most. In your writing, let go and explore the event and how it has affected you. Tie it to other parts of your life, your childhood, your relationships with your parents and close family members, those you had feared most, hated, and loved, your current life, friends and family, your work, your place in life, who you were in the past, who you are now, and who you want to be in the future. You want to examine your deepest emotions, be really honest with yourself and thoughts surrounding this upheaval in your life, and expect that you are probably going to feel sad and you might cry, immediately afterwards. And then of course there is the post section, post-writing thoughts to reflect on. And again, the flip out rule, if you feel that you're writing about a particular topic is too much for you to handle, then don't write about it. If you know that you aren't ready to address a particularly painful topic, write about something else, and when you're ready, then tackle it. If you feel that you'll flip out by writing, don't write about it. So let's do one more poll. How likely are you to try this journaling technique? Let me launch the poll. Okay. All right, most of you have answered, so I'll go ahead and share the results. And we have some honest attendees here. 6% said very unlikely. Okay, very cool. Not sure, I'll consider it. 18% likely, 51% and very likely, 25%. Okay. So here we are at the last slide, and if you would like to be entered for the equal opportunity drawing, what you want to do is take a photo of that QR code so that you can go in and do the evaluation. We do value your feedback, so please go ahead and do that. And if you're a student, you'll be entered for an equal opportunity drawing. We did have over 50 people today, so we have 2 Amazon gift cards to offer. All right, so I will go ahead and answer any questions at this time. So I'm going to take a look in the Q&A box. Okay, so here's one question. Is this journaling on trauma in general, or does it include healing, journaling for cancer patients and survivors and the like? Okay, so I'll answer that one first. You could absolutely use this if you're dealing with cancer or survivors. I mean, that is a trauma too. So you could absolutely do it for that issue. And the next question is Pennebaker's study like the one in Vanderkolk speaks of and the body keeps the score? I have that book on my Kindle. I haven't read it yet, so I cannot answer that question if it's similar. The next question, is expressive writing similar to poetry? Absolutely. You can use poetry as a way of expressing yourself. If that is genuine to who you are, use poetry as your way of expressing when you sit down and do this exercise. The next question, do they offer therapy for recovering after sexual assault? We absolutely in the counseling center do have therapy to help people recover from sexual assault. So I would recommend that you give us a call, 909-537-5040, and you can get connected with a therapist. We have groups related to that also. So I encourage you to check out the resources that the counseling center offers. All right, well, it looks like we do not have any more questions. So thank you all so much for attending today. And again, this recording will be available in about 1 to 2 weeks. So you can check it out if you like. All right, take care.